Hey everyone, welcome to Turkish series stars. All the details, all the whispers, and every goosebump-inducing moment are right here, so tap subscribe and share before we dive headfirst into tonight's storm. Thank you for being with us, because the world of celebrity buzz is roaring again, and this time the waves are crashing because of Yaman's candid, bare-souled words. In his latest interview, the handsome star let slip a line that sent the internet spinning. I only fell in love with Demet. One sentence, 5 words, and suddenly every eye is on Demet Özdemir, the name that refuses to fade from the brightest part of his horizon. Their connection has long been the kind of story fans write poems about, a romance that seemed to breathe both in the glow of studio lights and in the quiet corners outside the camera's gaze. For years, viewers pointed to them and said, that is what chemistry looks like, that is what devotion feels like, and today, with this confession, those long-held hopes were fed like fire meeting oxygen. Ken has traveled through a constellation of roles, stood shoulder to shoulder with many talented partners, and gathered an army of admirers who track every move and every glance. Yet he chose this moment to step forward with a clarity that cuts. He has experienced many faces, many seasons, many shadows and lights, but the name his heart speaks is Demet. The timing is impossible to ignore. Just when the whispers had grown teeth, rumors of distance, of a cooling quiet, of a gap no one could quite map, he chose to place a single sentence down like a thunderclap. Those words rolled across feeds, timelines, and comment threads, sparking think pieces, reaction videos, and teary-eyed edits made by fans who still remember the first day they saw them share a frame. You could feel it in the way people typed, breathless and hopeful, that the confession hit harder than a headline. It felt like a promise stitched into the present, a reminder that what we saw back then might never have been just a storyline. Because their legend began on a set, under hot lamps and with call sheets that hinted at destiny. Yaman and Demet Özdemir met amid cameras and cues, but what lived between them looked too alive to be blocked into place. The way they laughed, the glances they pretended not to steal, the soft pauses that said more than scripted words, viewers took it all as a sign. The boundary between role and reality blurred into something delicate and enthralling. Fans whispered, then shouted, that this was a duet too precise to be accidental. And still, amid the frenzy, the two of them chose discretion as their armor, steering their private lives away from the stage's blinding glare. Of course, privacy breeds curiosity, and curiosity can morph into speculation. That silence from inside the circle kept the tabloids busy for years. Were they together? Were they apart? Did distance grow while schedules stretched them to opposite ends of the compass? Every few months a fresh echo would appear, a lukewarm sighting, a second-hand anecdote, a blurry photo from a doorway that could be anywhere. But tonight, all that muddle feels pale compared to the weight of Can's simple sentence. He didn't dress it up or wrap it in riddles. He said he only fell in love with Demet, and that was enough to make the internet shiver. In the hours that followed, social media became a river rushing in one direction. Some called it the clearest definition of love. A line without footnotes. Others said that a man who has never been timid with his charm choosing to be delicate with his heart means more than fans will ever know. It wasn't just romance that people celebrated, it was the honesty. It was the way he picked a moment when he could have dodged the question, and instead chose to answer with something that left him vulnerable. People wrote that it sounded like the kind of truth you don't say unless it has lived a long time inside you. And what of Demet? She has not rushed to the microphone. She has not posted a statement or taped an explanation to the front door of her life. Those who sit close to her, the friends who have learned to speak softly so rumors don't grow larger than reality, have whispered that she was moved. Demet, who has always preferred to let her work rise and fall like tides while her heart stays tucked out of sight, is said to have smiled without a word. A quiet answer from a woman who understands the weight of silence. Meanwhile, voices close to both of them insist there is no storm to talk about. No crisis. If anything, the ground beneath them has grown steadier with time, like a path worn smooth by footsteps that always find the same direction. That is why this moment stands out. The entertainment world is a carousel that spins fast and throws off cotton candy romances every other turn. But the story of Can and Demet is different. It has been tested by headlines, and haven't we heard this before, columns that try to wring out a twist every week. Yet every so often, a piece of truth arrives with a clean simplicity that resists the tabloid blender. This feels like one of those times. His confession doesn't shriek, it hums. It reaches for tenderness instead of spectacle. And that subtlety is exactly why it has everyone's attention. It's also a rebuttal, make no mistake. You can hear it as a reply to the questions that have chased them down corridors for years. Did they drift apart? Did career priorities turn romance into a corridor of closed doors? Were they only ever acting? Can's sentence walks past those queries and turns off the hallway lights. It pulls the focus back to Demet, not as a rumor, not as a co-star, but as the singular reference point in a love story that refuses to behave like a passing trend. And just like that, observers have resurrected the debate about what love looks like when the cameras go home, about whether a feeling can outlast the machinery of fame. It helps that Can has always been the sort of figure who can draw a crowd with a single glance. Charisma sits on him like a tailored suit, and yet in interviews he tends to lean away from the chaos, giving away just enough to keep the peace. He has guarded his private life even when people begged for a souvenir. That's why tonight's openness feels extraordinary. Always the gentleman with a straight back, he chose softness, chose clarity, chose to be heard with no filter. He talked about seasons he had survived, waves he had ridden, faces he had greeted, and then he came back to Demet as if there had never really been another destination. The origin story is no secret. The day their paths collided on set, something shifted. Between takes, in quiet corners, in bursts of laughter that weren't scripted, their familiarity grew in ways you simply can't fake. Viewers noticed it immediately and began to collect those moments like trinkets. The warmth, the lightness, the jokes that overshot their marks, it all read as more than a convenient partnership. Soon the rumor machine revved up, because of course it did, and because their instinct was to protect their own lives, there weren't many tidy answers. Silence became a mirror where people saw what they wanted to see, and by the time a new project came along, the speculation had already learned to walk on its own. Still, every now and again a spark would fly. A glance carried longer than necessary. A laugh that seemed to remember a private punchline. A city where they happened to be at the same time. The internet would erupt, then quiet, then bide its time. Today, it's erupting for a different reason, not because someone found two shadows on the same sidewalk, but because he chose to speak plainly. He made his declaration during a television appearance, elegant and composed, but visibly moved in a way that cameras can't hide. The moment aired, and within minutes, phones were lighting up around the globe. Fans wrote that it takes courage to say something that cannot be walked back, and that is what he did. Not a hint. Not a wink. A statement that weighs the same whether it is whispered or shouted. The tabloids tried to reframe it, of course, they always do, but the heart of it refuses to be twisted. He said he only fell in love with Demet. There is no comma where doubt can take root. There isn't a loophole. And that is why the response feels so unanimous. People wanted to believe the story they've been carrying ever since those first on-screen sparks. They wanted to think that behind the curtain, something this delicate and this luminous could survive. Insiders add small details that make the picture warmer. A bracelet Demet wore at a quiet dinner, said to be a gift from a time that still glows. A song lyric she quoted in a backstage moment that felt too specific to be random. Friends who swear the two of them have learned a gentle rhythm that respects ambition without sacrificing care. A pact to shelter what matters, even when the world itches to intrude. Nothing overly dramatic, nothing staged, just small truths that fit together like beads on the same thread. If you ask me, the power of this confession lies in its simplicity. By saying less, he ended up saying everything. Years of doubt, of breathless claims and dismissals, were eclipsed by one clean line that refuses to fade. And because he has always been measured, because he has built a reputation for being grounded even when the ground shifts, his words land with extra weight. He is not reckless, he is deliberate. He is not performing, he is testifying. That is how it feels to the fans who have been here from the beginning, and to the ones who arrived just in time to watch a calm truth rise above the noise. Meanwhile, Demet's quiet is telling its own story. The rumor is that she has allowed herself to be happy about it, to be moved in that private way that doesn't ask for applause. She has never needed to decorate her heart with announcements. But those who know her say that her eyes softened when she heard. That she held the moment the way you hold a letter you've been waiting to read. There is grace in that, the kind that reminds us that not every chapter has to be narrated as it's written. Some chapters prefer to be lived first, then understood later. And so, here we are, an industry buzzing, a fanbase electrified, and a pair of names that, somehow, still sound like they rhyme. Maybe that's why their story refuses to let go. It doesn't depend on spectacle or breaks engineered for attention. It survives because it makes sense in a way that needs no translation. Because even if distance has visited, even if work has demanded sacrifices, the line that connects them continues to draw itself without asking permission. One sentence made that visible again. By choosing this moment, Ken not only refreshed the narrative, he reshaped it. He turned questions into period marks. He turned suspense into tenderness. And most of all, he reminded everyone that sometimes love is not a riddle, not a cliffhanger, but a simple truth that stands quietly at the center of the room, waiting to be recognized. The entertainment machine will keep spinning, and there will always be new faces and new chapters. But tonight belongs to a confession that feels both intimate and grand, both personal and universal. This is where we wrap for now, but you know how it goes, stories like this keep breathing after the cameras stop. We'll keep watching the little signs, the gentle gestures, the steps that speak louder than declarations. Until then, remember to subscribe to Turkish series stars and share this video with the friends who have waited for this moment as long as you have. We'll be here, ready for the next heartbeat in the saga of Yaman and Demet Özdemir, two names that continue to echo long after the echo should have faded. And tonight, with one honest line, that echo sounds like home. Before we go, let me leave you with this: sometimes the truest thing is the thing that doesn't need a flourish. Sometimes the most romantic sentence is the shortest one in the room. He said it softly, almost like an aside, and yet it shook the floor beneath the gossip world. He did not ask to be believed, he simply spoke. And because it was him, and because it was her, we believed it instantly. That is the kind of legacy most love stories never earn. That is the magic of Can and Demet when the script falls away and the heart takes over. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep your notifications on, keep your hearts open, and keep your eyes on Turkish series stars. Good night.